This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. I'm your host. And our job here at Construction Leading Edge is to help you, the construction business owner and leader, transform your business into one that is a source of freedom, impact, and wealth. To systematize your business so it becomes a source of freedom, impact, and wealth. Here's what we're going to talk about. Is your business headed for a tipping point? Are you personally headed for a tipping point if you're a business owner? And this will apply even if you don't own your own business. If you're an employee, it will be interesting to go through. Over this next few minutes, you're going to go through our 12-point assessment to help you answer the question, is my company, or is the company I work at, headed for a tipping point? And this 12-point assessment will help you answer that question. You'll also find out a few other things about your company, like how resilient is it? What area should you focus your efforts on to get the most bang for your buck? Where should you start? What's the lead domino? And how prepared are you for the future? We'll get into that in just a few minutes. Here are a few resources I want to share with you before we get started. We know as contractors, you're always looking for ways to get the job done simpler and faster so you can spend more time working on your business rather than in your business. That's why we recommend taking a look at Hover. Hover is an easy-to-use, feature-packed solution that simplifies the process of selling and producing all your exterior projects. Trusted by thousands of home improvement professionals, from contractors to the nation's leading materials manufacturers, Hover transforms any home into an accurate, fully measured 3D model with property measurements. And we mean all the measurements with to-the-inch detail. We're talking fascia, soffit depth, linear feet of trim board, you name it. But it doesn't just give you measurements. Hover gets you faster, more accurate quotes, dependable material quantities, and places your orders with suppliers all in one place, helping home improvement professionals optimize and grow their business. Visit hover.to today or download the Hover app to learn more. Are you tired of chasing down field reports? Raken's easy-to-use software helps you connect the field to the office. That way, you get the progress updates you need without wasting hours on the job. With Raken's mobile app, field crews can share updates as they build. Everything from daily reports, time-stamped photos and notes, to time cards, checklists, and production data. All that field data is turned into a professional, branded PDF report, making it easy to see and share how a project is going. With Raken's web dashboard, the office can track projects in real time and find actionable insights to improve them. Give your field crews an app they'll actually use and get the data you need to build better projects. To learn more, go to rakenapp.com. That's RAKENAPP.com. All right, let's jump in to our 12-point assessment to see if your business is headed for a tipping point. I'm going to read through a list of the 12 most common symptoms that I hear from construction business owners, and I'll give you a few examples. And what I want you to do, maybe grab a piece of paper, grab your phone, and I want you to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 of how applicable they are to you. And consider these questions. How often do you hear yourself say these things or think these things? Or how big of a problem is this? 10, it means that it is a big problem. It's something that you hear yourself saying or thinking very frequently, or it's a big concern for the future of your business. Okay, so rate these top 12 symptoms on a scale of 1 to 10. The first one, number 1, is details are falling through the cracks way more often than they should. Details are falling through the cracks. For example, selections weren't made. Shop drawings didn't get approved. Details weren't finalized. These things come out while you're on the job site, way late in the game. Change orders didn't get signed. Customers didn't know about something. Material wasn't ordered. We're headed out to a job site, Did you guys get those anchor bolts? Oh, I ordered them. I thought I don't know. Maybe, hey, can you run out and pick up those anchor bolts for us from Home Depot? Or, hey, the footer crew is here, but we don't have any rebar, or we're missing some corner bars, or some one bundle of rebar didn't get delivered. And details like that are falling through the cracks. There's an old saying that I like to use, which is the best way to starve a horse is to have two people feed it. So I call it starving horse syndrome. So how big of an issue is starving horse syndrome, where you hear things like, I thought you were handling that. I thought you ordered that. You did that last time. Hey, I thought you wanted to take care of it this time. I didn't realize that was my job. So details falling through the cracks. How would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? Number 2, it seems like every problem comes to me. If you're a business owner, if you're a leader, it seems like every problem comes to me. A few examples. If there's an unhappy customer, you get the call. You have to have the conversation with the unhappy customer. There's a subcontractor issue? It lands in your lap. For example, I heard an example of a home builder recently. He found out that this project had been stalled out. He happened to talk to a customer. The customer said, hey, nothing's been going on at our house for like a month. And it completely caught him off guard. So he picked up the phone and had to go find a siding guy to come out to the job site. Another example is a business owner has a conversation. They're looking through the financials, looking through the budget on a project. They realize, hey, we went over on the framing allowance by like $15,000. But he found out that nobody had told the customer about it. It had been 30, 45 days since they found out about this bust, but nobody had told the customer about it. So guess who gets to talk to the customer about it? Not the project manager, not the superintendent, but you, the business owner. So you get to go have those difficult conversations. Another example is, hey, can you come out to the job site and look at this detail? We're not sure how this is supposed to go. How do you want to do this? Can you come out to the job site? So you stop what you're doing, jump in your truck, head out to the job site, and spend the next 2-3 hours. And then while you're at the job site, maybe you get sucked into quite a few other details. Another example is you deal with all employee issues. If you had an organizational chart, it probably looks like you in the middle, like in the middle of a wheel and all these spokes going out, and everybody reports to you. Every employee reports to you. There's no organizational chart. Every subcontractor ultimately comes to you. Every customer comes to you, maybe because you sold the job and you're the face of the company, your name's on the company. But every problem comes to you. Every problem lands in your lap. Maybe you feel like I have to clear every roadblock. If an obstacle comes up, my team lets me know about it. They bring it to me. My team is great at collecting problems and showing them to me. They're great problem collectors. How would you rate that statement? It seems like every problem comes to me. Number 3. Here's the statement, quote, I am spending too much time on day-to-day details that someone else should be handling. I'm spending too much time on day-to-day details that somebody else on the team should be handling. If you were the captain of a ship, you would be trying to steer the ship, but you're spending a lot of time going into the engine room. You're going down into the mess hall to deal with kitchen issues, and you're making people's beds, and you're swabbing the decks. You're doing everything that somebody else should be doing. Here's the thing. Your time as the business owner is one of your company's most valuable resources. And if you're getting pulled in all sorts of different directions, you just don't have the time or the bandwidth or the emotional energy to do the things that only you can do. For example, maybe you're looking at hundreds of emails and messages every day. You're seeing every issue that comes through. You are maybe, for example, a few examples I've heard recently have been, my superintendents are supposed to be running the projects, scheduling subs, but really like all they're doing is operating as a babysitter. I'm having to create the schedules. I'm having to order the materials. I'm having to call the subcontractors. I'm getting sucked into these day-to-day details that somebody else should be doing. I've got this, another one I heard recently is I've got this big payroll. I have half a dozen people in my office. I've got this big payroll, and it seems like they should be handling these things for me. So how would you rate that one? The statement, I'm spending too much time on day-to-day details that someone else should be handling. Some of the indicators of this would be you're not spending time networking. You're not spending time doing training, not spending time doing business development, developing your business. You are stuck living in the projects, living in project details, not actually running the business. How would you rate that one? I'm spending too much time on day-to-day details someone else should be handling. Number 4, my team is duplicating efforts. My team is duplicating efforts. They're stepping on each other's toes. Here are a few specific examples. I was spending a couple of days with a client, and we came back from lunch, and there were 5 people in the room, and somebody said, yeah, the landscaper called me about this project, and it turns out that the landscaper had talked to 4 people in the room. He called person number 1, person number 2, person number 3, person number 4. They called 4 people in the room about the project, and the one person they didn't call was the project manager. So everybody gave the landscaper an answer, gave him their best answer, and then it caused confusion and, well, hey, he told me this, and then, well, she told me this, and it just creates this inefficiency, this turbulence. Another example, I was walking a project in South Dakota several years ago, trying to get to the source of some of their issues. And I was talking to some of the carpenters on site, and it turns out that on just about every day, on any given day, what would happen would be the carpenter would get their orders for the day and from their crew leader, and then the superintendent would walk through and say, hey, why are you doing that? That's not what you should be doing. Pack your shit up and go work on something else. And then the project manager would come through the office and say, why are you doing that? That's not what you should be doing. That's not a priority. So they would pack their stuff up, roll up, go to the next job. Sometimes the business owner would come through and ask, why are you doing that? I don't understand why you're doing that. And then there were 4 or 5 people who would come through and give everybody instructions on what they thought they should be doing. And it was incredibly inefficient. So people stepping on each other's toes, duplicating efforts. I've seen multiple people ordering materials, double ordering materials, multiple people talking to clients, giving them conflicting information, people giving conflicting information to subcontractors, right? One thing that customers and subcontractors are good for is this is human nature, not hating on anybody, but people tend to keep calling and asking other people until they get the answer they want. So I'm curious, to what extent is this statement affecting you? My team is duplicating efforts, stepping on each other's toes. How would you rate that one from 1 to 10? Number 5 in our 12-point assessment is this statement. It's all in my head. Our processes, our systems, my expectations, roles and responsibilities, nothing's written down. It's all in my head. A few examples of what this looks like, what it sounds like in real life. Job descriptions are unclear or non-existent. We spoke with a young lady who was hired for a company recently, and she said, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what I was hired for. And she had been at this company for a few months. That's a problem, right? How do you do things? Is it written down anywhere? Is your sales process written down? Is there a process for how you handle new leads? What about your estimating process? What about your process for scheduling? Is anything written down? Your closeout process? How you do things? Is it all in your head? Is it all in a collection of heads? When you hire someone, do they have something that they can read, watch, or listen to understand your process? What will you train them on? Is it all in your head? Is the training process something like, hey, jump in the truck with me and I'll tell you how we need to do it? Or I'll just delegate stuff to you. I'll delegate tasks. Is that how it's working? Is there a constant barrage of questions from your team? That is an indication that everything is in your head because they don't know what the process is. If every decision has to come from you, that's an indication that everything's in your head. When you bring on a new customer, do you have a customer roadmap that explains your process? Do they know what to expect? Are you leading them through the process, or is it like walking down a dark path in the fog where they're just taking one step at a time and they don't know what's coming next because your process is all in your head? Does your team know your why? Does your team know why you exist? Does your team know your company's vision, your mission? Does your team know what your vision is for the next 5 years? Or is it all in your head? Maybe you don't even know. But how would you rate that one? This statement, it's all in my head, our processes, systems, my expectations, vision, etc. How would you rate that one? 1 to 10, is this a big problem? Is it a big concern for the future? That's a 10. Not an issue, that's a 1. Number 6, my team doesn't seem to know who is responsible for what. My team doesn't seem to know who is responsible for what. There's this lack of clarity about roles and responsibilities. This sounds like statements that include, hey, you handled that last change order. I thought you wanted to take care of those from now on. If your team asks you for permission to do everything, if they ask you what you want to do, hey, Todd, what do you want to do here? Hey, Bruce, how do you want to handle this? What should I do? If you get questions from your superintendents, hey, how are we building out this detail? And you're saying things like, everything's in the file, everything's in co-construct, but they keep going back to you and they don't seem to know what they're responsible for. They don't understand that they're responsible for figuring these things out. If you find yourself delegating tasks all day long, telling people, hey, go do this, go pick this up, go call this person, ask them this question, come back to me. If everybody on your team is operating at gopher level delegation, go for this, go for that, and they're bringing everything back to you, and every decision comes back to you, every call comes back to you, this could be an issue. If you feel like you have to keep an eye on every little detail, that it all just lands on your shoulders, if the entire weight of your company lands on you, if you are responsible and accountable for everything, and you're like the genius with 1,000 helpers, then this is a problem. If you feel like your team isn't taking ownership, if you're thinking, why can't they just figure this stuff out? Why can't they just look and co-construct? Why can't they call this subcontractor? Why can't they have this conversation? I'm paying them to solve these problems. I'm not paying for problem collectors. You could have some issues. That's what that looks like. So how would you rate that statement? Number 6, my team doesn't seem to know who is responsible for what. Number 7, we are constantly in reactive mode. We are constantly in reactive mode. Things are always urgent. Nothing is done with ease. Nothing is done weeks in advance. Things are always urgent. You're spending a lot of time doing damage control with unhappy customers, saying things like, I'm sorry. Yeah, we missed that. We'll fix it. We'll make it right. That sends you into reactive mode, and that's a symptom that you're constantly in reactive mode. If you're paying a premium to rush things, a premium if you're getting hit with opportunity costs because you can't go look at this long-term project because you're stuck dealing with fires of today. If, like one of our clients said, if you're stuck in the next 4 to 6 hours looking at issues, dealing with problems, putting out fires, and you don't have the time or the bandwidth or the energy to look weeks and months in advance, then you're in reactive mode. There's just no time to do strategic work. no time to do business development, no time to do training. By the time you realize you need to hire someone, you need somebody right now. Your hiring process is the mirror test, where you hold a mirror in front of them, and if it fogs up, you say, "You're hired." That's constant reactive mode. If you're working too many hours, if you're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, maybe you look up and you're like, shit, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I haven't even touched my to-do list. The things I wanted to do today, I haven't even touched them. How would you rate that one? The statement, we are constantly in reactive mode. Number 8, I'm concerned that our team is stressed and frustrated. I'm concerned that our team is stressed and frustrated. How would you rate that one? What this looks like would be statements like the following. Quote, our team is operating at red line. If your team had a tachometer, they're operating at red line. They're at like 5,000 or 6,000 RPMs, just working at 100 to 110% capacity all the time. Maybe you're concerned that people are going to quit. You're starting to get the sense that people are frustrated, people are stressed, and you're wondering, what would happen if I lost this person? Or are they, if somebody came along and made them an offer, they may just bail out on me. I've heard a lot of instances in the last 6 or 8 months of people who have suddenly found out their people are quitting. Superintendents quitting, saying, I'm done. This place is a disorganized shit show. I can't handle it anymore. You guys are just winging it. I can't work like this. I've heard of pre-construction managers just quitting because of the stress and the chaos. Heads of construction, the head of construction of one pretty large company just quit because of the stress. Another statement I heard from a business owner was, I have this rock star project manager, but I'm afraid of what will happen if he leaves. He's fantastic. Everything's going great, but what if he leaves? So how would you rate this one? I'm concerned that our team is stressed and frustrated. Number 9, we are experiencing profit bleeds. If you think about at the beginning of a project, picture the profit, the gross profit that's in your project is this balloon. And over the course of the project, sometimes there are these little pinpricks, little things that cause some of that profit to bleed out. And sometimes there are these RPG rounds that just obliterate the profits. The profit's all gone, and in some cases you end up doing philanthropy, writing checks at the end of a project, worst case. So here are some of the most common profit bleeds. Lost productivity. We have hourly employees doing work, and we're just losing time to lost time, wasted time, looking for materials. One of the biggest profit bleeds, one of the biggest productivity killers is shopping. Going to the supply house, going to Home Depot, picking up materials. That is a killer. Another one is rework, doing work twice because of quality issues, location, wrong materials, etc. Unsolicited charity, giveaways, doing work, not getting paid for it when you should. Maybe a subcontractor has a conversation with the homeowner or the client, they do the work, and the sub bills you, and you find out about it 3 months later, and it's too late to get a change order, or you just don't even know about it, or you get to the end of the project and the customer's not happy, so you end up bartering, or you end up just throwing stuff in, cutting your price, eating cost to try to make them happy. I've done that way too many times. That's a big one. Estimating misses, things that just get missed during the estimating process. Speaking of estimates, if you're a home builder, a remodeler, doing free estimates is a huge source of profit bleeds that you need to stop immediately. That's a big one. And then one of the biggest profit bleeds that never shows up is opportunity cost. I've talked about this a lot, but imagine if you're losing days, having schedule overruns, losing production, how much more work could you do in a year with the same team by recapturing that lost time? No more overhead cost. All your fixed costs are the same. How much more work could you do in a year if you streamlined your operation? So how would you rate that one? Number 9, we are experiencing profit bleeds. All right, number 10, our customers may be losing confidence in us. Our customers may be losing confidence in us. Some of the symptoms that this is happening is that your customers are scrutinizing details. They are looking at things with a magnifying glass, asking lots of questions about things. They want to meet. They want more updates. They are scrutinizing things. Punch lists become a nightmare. They just don't trust you because they've lost confidence. They are often slow to pay. Low confidence customers are slow to pay. There are missed expectations. You're having tough conversations with clients where they're saying things like, but I thought you said, or you told me we were going to get this, and that's not what we discussed. And you're having these uncomfortable conversations. These are some indications that your customers may be losing confidence. Other indications would be you're just not getting positive reviews. You're not getting good Google reviews. The vibe is just off when you're meeting with customers. The body language is closed. They're not calling you. When you have conversations with clients, they have this laundry list of problems they want to talk about. So how would you rate this one? Our customers may be losing confidence. Number 11, the business consumes more of my life than it should. The business consumes more of my life than it should. You're working too many hours, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. You're working weekends. You're not present when you are at home. Even though you're there, you're not present. The stress, the worry, you're thinking about the schedule. You're maybe dealing with emails, dealing with after-hours calls, dealing with co-construct messages and builder trend messages, and you're working constantly. You can't take a vacation. You can't step away for a 3-day weekend, worst case. If you do take a week off, you know there's going to be just a disaster waiting for you. The idea of going to Italy for 2 weeks is impossible. It just seems impossible. If you did, you may not have a business when you come back, or you would, at a minimum, you're concerned you would have a disaster waiting for you. So how would you rate this one? The business consumes more of my life than it should. And then finally, this is the big one. Number 12, the stress of the business is affecting me or my family. The stress of the business is affecting me or my family. Here are some things I've heard just recently in my conversations with business owners. It's stress, and the stress is resulting in weight gain. They're not able to exercise, they're eating more than they should, and they're not happy with their weight. There's just the stress and some of the health problems that come along with that, which we'll talk about in a minute. A lot of people, if they're being transparent, are suffering, they're dealing with anxiety. They're just anxious. And in some cases, they're taking medication because of this anxiety about the finances, anxiety about the financials, about projects, and just general anxiety from the business. A big issue that I think is hidden, it's not talked about very much, is alcohol. People are drinking more than they should. And we don't have time to get into this, but I've heard things like, well, you know how it is. You get home at the end of the day and you drink 3 or 4 cocktails and you just pass out. Or, I drink, I get home, and to take the edge off, I have a bottle of wine. Or I've heard people say, my wife has been working in the business. We've got this big issue going on. She's drinking more wine than she ever has before. So drinking. And then health problems. I have spoken to several people just in the last couple of months who have health problems directly related to the business. 2 guys with heart issues. One guy thought it was anxiety. It turns out it was a heart issue. People who have recently, relatively young people who have recently started on blood pressure medication. Health issues caused by the stress of the business. So how would you rate this one? The stress of the business is affecting me or my family. Maybe there's an effect on your family, on your relationship with your spouse, relationship with your kids. We'll talk about that tipping point in just a few minutes. So let's look at a few scenarios based on your answers. So really quick, we'll run through this again. Number 1, details are falling through the cracks. How would you rate that one? Number 2, seems like every problem comes to me. Number 3, I'm spending too much time on day-to-day details someone else should be handling. Number 4, my team is duplicating efforts. We're stepping on each other's toes, wasting time. Number 5, it's all in my head. Number 6, my team doesn't seem to know who is responsible for what. Number 7, we are constantly in reactive mode. Number 8, I'm concerned our team is stressed and frustrated. Number 9, we're experiencing profit bleeds like lost productivity, rework, unsolicited charity, and opportunity costs. Number 10, our customers may be losing confidence. Number 11, the business consumes more of my life than it should. And number 12, the stress of the business is affecting me or my family. So let's look at a few scenarios based on your scores, okay? If you have any scores above an 8, then you need to make some changes immediately because you're probably approaching a tipping point. You could be, it's very likely that you are heading for a tipping point. Sometimes things change gradually and you can see them coming, but sometimes they change suddenly. I saw a video recently of this catastrophic structural failure of a new shopping mall in Mexico City, and they were shooting a video and everything looks great. It's this beautiful building with lots of glass, and then a window pops out and a couple of more windows break, and then all the windows in the storefront glass shatter, and then complete collapse. Just complete collapse of a finished building. And that was over the course of 30 seconds or so. I took structural engineering in college, and we studied structural failures like the Kansas City Hyatt. And it was a sudden and catastrophic failure. There was no warning. And it was one of the biggest structural failures, one of the most costly structural failures when it comes to lives lost and dollars damage up until that point. So structural failures in buildings happen suddenly and catastrophically, and in some cases, the same thing happens in businesses. That's the tipping point. Sometimes things change suddenly and you don't see them coming. They hit the tipping point. A few examples. Let's say you're like a lot of the people that I talk to. You are a referral-based business. You don't really do much advertising. All your leads, all your prospects, customers come from referrals. If that's the case, quality starts to slip a little bit. Customers start to lose confidence. They're not happy with the way things are going. Their budgets are getting blown. Their schedules are getting blown. And word starts spreading in your community. So you work in a small coastal area or a vacation community, and you're based on reputation and referrals. What happens then? Another one is, let's say your team is stressed because everyone's running at 108% capacity. They're redlining. Let's say a key person suddenly leaves. Then what happens? When your key superintendent or project manager or your selections manager or your designer or your operations manager says, I'm done. I can't handle it anymore. I can't handle the stress, the chaos. Then what happens? Who does their work? Then what happens when somebody else has to step up and handle their work? And then when will you have time to recruit and hire and train? If you're experiencing profit bleeds, maybe you don't even know it. What happens if they get worse? Let's talk about your personal life. This is the most important thing. I heard a great analogy about what strain on your family looks like. Imagine that your kids, let's say your kids, think about one of your kids, and they're holding this big rock, right? And it's this big rock and it's heavy, but they're holding it. You look at them and you're like, okay, they're okay. They're holding it. And then your spouse is holding this big rock, and you could see a little bit of strain and you're thinking, maybe we should do something about that, but everything seems to be okay right now. I'll be able to know if there's a problem. And you're like, it's tough, but they're holding it until they drop it suddenly. Suddenly they just drop it. They don't gradually drop the rock. And the same thing applies to you, this stress that you're dealing with. You don't gradually have problems, but this stress finally hits a tipping point and your spouse just drops the rock. Your kids just drop the rock and your marriage suffers. That's when you achieve this tipping point. That's when things tip. Marriage suffers, the relationship with your kids suffers. There could be other effects on your kids, and you only have so much time with your kids until they're out of the house, right? I'm dealing with this right now. I have my second kid just left for college. And then let's talk about your personal health, this tipping point with your personal health. The doctor, imagine you're having these problems, things aren't feeling right, or you go in for a physical and your doctor comes in and says, "I've got some bad news. Your blood pressure is too high. You're at risk." Or, "Hey, we need to get you into surgery right now because you have a blockage," or "your cholesterol is too high," or you just burn out emotionally. You just burn out. You achieve this tipping point where you're like, "I can't handle it anymore." Or the drinking just gets out of hand. The drinking or whatever you're doing, the coping mechanism you're using to deal with the stress just gets out of hand, and you achieve this tipping point. If that's where you're at, if you have any scores above an 8, then you need to make some changes immediately because you are probably approaching a tipping point. If that doesn't apply to you and you're thinking, you know what, I'm somewhere in the middle, I've got some 2s and 3s, maybe a few 5s and 6s, perhaps the highest score is a 7, and you're thinking, you know what, I'm in pretty good shape. Things are running pretty well. Yeah, things are running pretty well as long as you're in the picture, as long as you're there. So let me ask you a few questions. Take a look at this. Are any of those numbers trending upward over the past few years? If you think about one of the numbers one of the highest numbers for you, where would you say it was 2 years ago? Let's say the business consumes more of your life. Where was it 2 years ago? Was it lower? Is it getting better or getting worse? The stress is affecting me. My team is frustrated and stressed. How are those numbers trending? Are they getting better or are they getting worse? Question number 2 is, will your business run without you for 2 weeks? I mean, will the business sell work, produce work, invoice for work, and collect money if you're gone, completely out of the picture for 2 weeks? Number 3, if something happened that kept you away from the business for a few months, say you had a health issue, or a family member had a health issue, or you suddenly needed to go out of town for an extended period of time, or if you were hit with a lawsuit that pulled you away from the business and just consumed your time, what would happen to your business if you were extracted from it for a few months at a time? Question number 4 to consider is, how resilient is your business? How resilient is it? What if a key employee left, or a big project that you're planning on starting in the next few months was delayed or even canceled? What if a big customer cancels on you? What if the market changes? How resilient is your business? Number 5, do you plan on growing your company in the next 5 years? What do you expect your headcount to do over the next 5 years? What about your top line revenue? Which of those issues are you most concerned about as you grow the company, if you're planning on growing it? What's going to happen to those numbers? Sometimes, well, in many cases, problems grow exponentially. They don't grow linearly with headcount and revenue. They grow exponentially. And then number 6, the last question for you is, do you want to exit your business someday? Do you want to sell it? Would you like to turn it over to one of your children, transition it to a key employee, maybe convert your business to an employee-owned business, an ESOP? Well, to do that, this may surprise you, but think about this. In order to do that, in order to exit your business, you need to be in a place where most of those numbers are a 1. Maybe all of those numbers would be a 1. Otherwise, you won't be able to exit your business, because if details are coming to you, if your team is stressed and frustrated, if problems are falling in your lap, if there's not clarity about roles and responsibilities, stepping away from your business, exiting your business, selling it is going to be very difficult, maybe even impossible. So I hope that 12-point assessment was valuable for you. I would challenge you to take action. Do something about it. And if you would like to get those numbers lower, certainly if you're approaching a tipping point, then we want to help. If you want to get those numbers lower, even if you're in the middle and you want to get your numbers down into the 1s so you can get out of your business and make it run without you and make it more resilient, make it more recession-proof, then you could be a good fit for our Systematize Your Construction Business program. We're working with construction business owners every day, helping them systematize their business so they can get these numbers lower, so their business can operate without them. Or maybe they want to stay in the business. Maybe you want to continue working in the business for the next 5 or 10 years. You just want to get the stress level down. You want to, and maybe your stress level is okay, but you're concerned about your team and you want to provide a great culture. And you want to provide a great experience for your customers, both internal and external customers. Then our Systematize Your Construction Business program may be a good fit for you. And you can take the first step by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply. That's constructionleadingedge.com/apply. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I have one challenge and one request for you before you go. Here's the challenge. What is your 5-minute action item from this podcast? In other words, what is one thing you want to implement in your business or on your projects that will take you 5 minutes or less? My challenge for you is to create an action item as soon as this podcast is over and do it. Send yourself a text, send yourself an email, put it in your planner, write it down in your unicorn journal, whatever it is, but take action on something from this podcast episode so you get some real value from it. Now, here's the request. If this podcast has been valuable to you, please leave a rating and a review. Here's how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts on your iOS device. Number 1, open up the Apple Podcast app. Number 2, go to the icons at the bottom of the screen and choose search. Search for this show, Construction Leading Edge. Be sure to click on the show, not the episode. Then scroll all the way down to ratings and reviews. And finally, click on write a review. These instructions will also be in the show notes. If you could leave a rating and a review, that would mean a lot to me, and it also helps get the word out there to other folks. And don't forget, if you want to get out of your business and make it run without you this year, go watch my free online training workshop at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. That's constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt. I'll see you next time. Remember, every project starts in the field, and Raken's field-friendly software makes documentation easy. With Raken's mobile app, crews can document progress on the go, and you can track everything in real time right from the office. So, give your field crews an app they'll actually use and stay on top of all your projects. To learn more, go to rakenapp.com. That's RAKENAPP.com. Home improvement is a big deal for everyone involved, but sometimes projects get off to the wrong start and the margin of error can be costly. Thanks to Hover, the home improvement experience becomes more simple, efficient, and transparent. Accurate measurements, collaborative design tools, and dependable estimates are all ways Hover helps you serve your customers better and improve your operations to grow your business. For more information, visit hover.to or download the free Hover app today.